Thank you so much, Dr. Faisal Sudan, for speaking with us. I guess to get right into it, सबसे पहला सवाल जो सबसे pressing सवाल बहुत से लोग के mind पर था, वो था question lockdown का, and how the lockdown took effect, the full lockdown, उसके बाद जो partial lockdown आया, तो आप उस पर अपनी कुछ राय share कर सकते हैं कि what was the thought process behind the government's implementation of first a full lockdown, then the lifting of all restrictions, और अभी जो partial lockdowns जो वापस आ रहे हैं.
So look, this evolved with time, and I think in late March, the feeling was that the rest of the world's experience showed that the numbers had grown elsewhere, and some of the places that had controlled the spread of infection was by ensuring that there were fewer interactions. And the way to ensure those fewer interactions was to restrict people's movement. And that was done through a varying set of restrictions, which got the name lockdown, which really meant somewhat different things to different people and situations. So right in March, the provincial leaderships, almost at the same time, within a day or two of each other, decided to impose restrictions that were broader in span than what you're seeing currently. In fact, what happened is that prior to this, just a week or so prior to this, around the middle of March, some initial steps were taken. Those initial steps included banning of large gatherings, weddings, etc. And then towards the end of March, what happened is that there were further restrictions, which essentially meant that almost all commercial activity, shops, etc., were closed, and the only essential things like pharmacies and health-related and food-related commercial or business activities continued. Now, this continued for some weeks, and the idea, I think, at this time was that in the absence of complete information as to what was going on, the safest course deemed at that time to be the one to adopt was to actually broadly stop activity. Then there had to be an exit out of this, and the exit was around the 11th of May. And this, and before that, there was a whole series of planned de-escalations, if you will, which started with one set of industries and the next and the next, until around the 11th of May, when a general opening up happened. And it happened in various degrees and types according to the place. But because it was the pre-Eid time, I think a lot of either pent-up demand or people did not understand or respect the issue involved. And so we saw a fair bit of activity that that became visible in those days.
So I think it's interesting आपने ये lockdown lifting की conversation raised की, and I assume it was because the government ने कहा है कि they were concerned about daily wage earners, etc. तो lockdown lift उन्होंने कर दिया. But now that government is imposing partial lockdowns again, so is that a sign that the government was wrong to completely lift the lockdown in the first place, considering how the number of cases have shot up since then?
Look, it would be a big mistake to look at this through a binary lens. It cannot be an either or. There was, as I said, it started out first with a broad action which included initially just large activities. Then it escalated up to almost everything with some exceptions. And then it de-escalated from that point on to a point of a general opening up, barring a few things back in May. So it's not a question of what was right or wrong. It is impossible to know beforehand exactly the impact and duration of how long you need to keep restrictions in place.
Sure.
So
the WHO.
So therefore, see, a lot depends on the shape of your epidemic, the shape of your trajectory. If you're going to have a sharp peak and you put your restrictions in at that time, you try to slow down the spread at that time, you relax at that time, and you come out of it. The problem is that if you've had a slower rise, if your numbers in epidemic have come low and slow, which it did in case of almost the entire subcontinent, the problem is that the time durations don't quite then match up the stamina that the system has for having an extended period of extreme restrictions.
Sure. To point out the WHO report that came out, जो specifically पंजाब के बारे में बात करी थी, and उन्होंने पाकिस्तान के बारे में recommendations share की, तो उन्होंने ये report में notice किया कि the lockdown, as you said, कि कुछ conditions होती हैं because of which you're implementing lockdown, and then through when information and number of cases changes, you can perhaps lift the lockdown in a somewhat targeted way. लेकिन ये WHO report ने कहा कि Pakistan does not meet any of the conditions of lifting the lockdown restrictions, which include disease transmission being under control, being able to isolate, track and trace every single case that exists, and crucially एक reproductive number की बात की है जो R0 जो है. तो ये R number जो पाकिस्तान का है is a very crucial number because according to scientists, and I'm sure you're much better aware of this than I am, कि R number should be below 1 because it indicates the risk of transmission of the disease to someone else. And internationally and the WHO ने recommend किया है कि unless the R number is below 1, तो हमें ये restrictions lift नहीं करने चाहिए. Now the WHO report notes कि ये R number हमारा above 1 है, but the government के end से हमें कोई R numbers की communication नहीं आई है. So what's your perspective on this entire thing, and why isn't the government sharing R numbers with us?
First of all, the WHO does not have anywhere, to my knowledge, this as a set of recommendations on their international website. Are you aware of that?
No, so, I'm specific to the exact report that they compiled about Pakistan.
I'm going to come to the letter. So look, the letter has a number of things that are borrowed, non-specific, not necessarily scientifically validated, and are matters of opinion and somewhat purist in their view of it through a complete medical prism, from the medical look at things. Let's take that the infections are under control. What does it mean exactly? Is there a qualitative number? I'll come to that. I'll address each point. I'll address each point. So look, it doesn't address, none of the countries that lifted necessarily had all the infections under control. The only thing is that the growth in many situations had beginning to slow down, or there's also this somewhat spurious association that necessarily they slowed down because of this. They came out of lockdowns because of this. The fact is, everybody made their decisions on exiting lockdowns based on more than one factor. The second thing they said, the ability to contact trace every single person. This is unbelievable. In a respiratory illness of this kind, in a large country, I'm not talking about small countries with very robust systems and old established systems. The fact is, the ability to contact trace everybody in a respiratory illness of this nature, it's a completely undoable proposition, in practical terms. They had other conditions, for example, which will show you why the idea was somewhat, a little borrowed, a little copied, a little pasted. It mentioned, you must have noticed, nursing homes. How many nursing homes do you think there are in Pakistan? Okay. It mentioned schools and colleges. They were not there. They were closed in any case. So this idea of R0, okay, the reproductive number in a total set is very difficult to calculate because the epidemic does not spread evenly across the entire country in large, complex countries with multiple population sets. So let's try to understand. The R number, if you gave me a closed population or a small population or a system with very documented health systems, it is somewhat an easier task to calculate R0s. But the point is that Pakistan is 200 million people in a number of different provinces. So really, it's multiple cylinders, multiple sets of populations that will have individual or different R0s. So therefore, to calculate a single R0 for the country is one, difficult in that sense, and two, is misleading, because you really need to be having a nuanced response, a more targeted, a more structured response that attacks the problem where it is. A blunderbuss approach of closing down everything. And so, you know, so if you go back, the question that one needs to ask is, for how long does one continue that kind of restrictions? And also, please keep in mind that such restrictions are not only destructive for economies. Put that to the side for a second. They're destructive to healthcare systems and health. So during this lockdown, for example, there was a report from one of the provinces that every day 9,000 children were being missed on immunization every single day of the lockdown. I was told that the national TB time that ought to have come and received care, that did not. There was the Stop TB program actually had a modeling exercise in which they were able to show that over the next 5 years, there will be 1.5 million additional deaths, 1.5 million additional deaths in high-risk countries. And you know who the high-risk countries are? We are amongst the top 5. So, you know, even in the West, they have found that there were people who were, that the MIs are missing, the myocardial infarctions are missing, strokes are missing. So the impact of a lockdown or a general lockdown or a blunderbuss lockdown or the blunt big lockdown is not just on reducing the spread of coronavirus. For sure it does. That goes without saying. But it has impacts onto the health system and lives.
Yes, I think that was a very good point that you raised. And I think it leads to a very important point. And again, I would love to hear your perspective on this, because there is this frame of thought that Pakistan, as big and vast a country as it is, and as resource poor as it is, that it just was not able to control the coronavirus spread that well. On the other hand, people argue, for example, you can look at the Indian state of Kerala, you can look at places like Sri Lanka, like Vietnam, they're not very resource rich. वो भी बहुत से metrics के according developing countries के आते हैं, पाकिस्तान से comparable in many ways also. But उन्होंने शुरू से ही कोरोना वायरस के केसेस अच्छे खासे hundreds या low 1000s में रखे हैं. तो आपकी इस पर क्या राय होगी कि क्या पाकिस्तान में बड़ा कोरोना वायरस स्प्रेड इनएविटेबल था, या गवर्नमेंट कुछ स्टेप्स ले सकती थी जिससे बेहतर होता, या आपको लगता है कि ये पाकिस्तान उन केसेस से कंपैरेबल है ही नहीं?
Yeah, you can always do better, especially in hindsight. But that we're not discussing that. What we are discussing is that you've given some examples that are cherry-picked in special circumstances. I could cherry-pick an example from within Pakistan. There are zones and areas of Pakistan that actually have that kind of low numbers. AJK and Gilgit-Baltistan actually, for most part, had that kind of numbers. And why does this happen? Why is it able to happen in a place like this? Limited access, easy to close down, smaller populations, and so on. So, but you know, to generalize it across a large country with hundreds of millions of people is really neither fair nor does it make any sense, really. So it wasn't, or nothing is inevitable, but let's look at some facts and figures. Our deaths per million are still a fraction of what has happened in much more advanced and developed economies, right? How many deaths do we have so far? Right, few thousand. The US,
we're talking in the few
with all its mighty resources, and you know, if the US is not a great example, plenty of European countries with robust, old, established health systems have had many more deaths per million. So I'm not saying that even one death is acceptable, but the issue is that when you have an outbreak of this size in nature, unfortunately, some deaths will occur because this is the nature of how this evolves. So I think to somehow say that Pakistan's response hasn't blunted, stopped, slowed, or responded to this epidemic is, I think, patently an unfair description. Let's talk about things that were done.
Okay, right. And so in talking about things that were done, agar hum partial lockdown ki baat karen, because now you're seeing, I think in a lot of major cities, Karachi, Lahore, in other places, partial lockdowns are now being instituted. So what was the reasoning behind instituting partial lockdowns as compared to a full lockdown and as compared to no lockdown?
So as I said, it's not a binary. When this started out, what was done initially was stopping large activities. Agreed? Would you call that some sort of a restriction or lockdown? Yes. Then you had the more general lockdown, the more blunt approach. That continued for a few weeks. Then there was an easing of it in steps. If you'll recall, some industries got opened before, then the next set and the next set. Now, at the present times, because the numbers have started to go up, and because very crucially, the health system is under stress. So therefore, some additional measures are and were required. They were not required at that time. So around the 11th of May, the pressure on the health system was negligible, right? And the numbers bear it out. The anecdotal numbers bear it out. The measured numbers bear it out. And also, let me tell you, so at that time, for example, the likelihood of the percent positivity of tests in Pakistan was about 12%, right? So therefore, the situation at that time was different. But you cannot compare the situation with today. So a few weeks down, your positivity rate is in the low 20s, at least minus the last 5 days, it's hovered around that time. So that's one. The second important and crucial bit is that for the last many weeks, the health system in large cities is under tremendous stress, and the stress starts even when you fill up 50%. So imagine that the first fill up happens in preferred hospitals. People, jahan log jana chahte hain, look, those places get filled up sooner than others. And so the panic and the fear starts. The health workers get under pressure because they're now getting overworked, they're getting infected themselves. So, so these 2 or 3 factors, the rising numbers, the future projections, as well as the clear and measurable stress on the health system, necessitated and necessitates that some additional things be done at this time. Thus, we come to these more restricted, more targeted, more, I should say, nuanced lockdowns. We can talk about those now if you want.
Right. Yeah, perhaps it would be helpful. And then we can discuss some of those other issues of our health system being under stress. But yes, what exactly are the specific metrics that the targeted lockdowns are targeting? And why is it exactly those measures in those particular areas that you think are need to be targeted?
Okay. So look, let me just give you an example. If you had a place, a mohalla, a neighborhood with 1,000 people, in whom over the last, say, 3 months, there were 10 cases. And I showed you another place nearby or in the same city, same size of the locality, same number of people, and they had 10 cases in the last 10 days. Who would you be concerned about? The second one, right? Because it's on a shorter time scale. So one of the factors is therefore time, the trajectory, the speed of the spread, right? The second factor is the number. Let's say a place has 10 people out of 1,000 in, say, the last 10 days, and the second place has 30 people in 1,000 in the last 10 days. Which one would you think is worth more attention or focus? The second one, or the third one, we should say now. So, so it's the absolute number of cases over time, but also let's take one other factor that's important that we've talked about, but I'll highlight, which is the number of people in that place. Let's say the 30 people were found in a 10-day period over only a 500 population. There you'll say, not only the speed is fast, in a smaller population, you have a larger number of people. And so therefore, this is probably the place that is the most attention worthy, right? So there's a whole spectrum. You start with a place that has disease, but it's not of the kind that necessarily mandates the greatest attention. And the greatest attention perhaps is required of places that have. So these are the 3 fundamentals. The numerator, which is the number of cases, the denominator, which is the population in which it occurs, and third, the speed in which the cases occur. So at the end of the day, it is, is a calculation, is an algorithm that would look at these factors and try to identify, what to do. Now, this cannot be looked at in isolation from enforceability. So let's say you find that there is a population of 2,000 people that has high spread by the definitions or criteria that we say, but it cannot really be separately locked up because it's completely adjacent to another area and the entry and egress from this place is common, or that they can't be necessarily separated. So now the administrative implementation of that so-called hotspot has to be now left to the local administration, and they say, well, look, we can enhance, shorten, modify, tighten, or expand the definition to make sure that it is locally enforced. So it's not an easy thing. It's hard, and just so that everybody remembers this. Look, when China locked down, did they lock up all of China or just UB? Would you say that was a smart lockdown?
Well, I think the Chinese example is...
No, but look. No, it is. I'm not talking about the degree of enforcement. The concept, however, that they locked down the place where there was the greatest trouble.
I think that now especially we're seeing a lot of scientific research talking about the importance of targeted lockdowns. And so I can definitely see the rationale behind that. But coming back to the previous point, about our health systems, right? And as you said, the reason why hum ye partial lockdown wagera ke kareeb gaye bhi and lifted the complete lockdown was because our health system wasn't being overwhelmed. But now what we're seeing is that in most of the major cities, abhi reporting coming out in recent days from Al Jazeera, from Geo, is showing that Peshawar ki bed capacity nearly full ho gayi hai. Islamabad ki bed capacity nearly full hai. In Karachi, a lot of the big hospitals are completely out of capacity also. So wasn't the purpose of a lockdown to slow down the rate of infection, ताकि in that time we can build up enough capacity to be able to deal with the cases when inevitably they do rise? तो उस time में हमारी projections government की ये नहीं थी कि by now beds full हो जाएंगे तो हम क्या करेंगे इस scenario में?
So again, if one, with the luxury of hindsight, you can calculate the number of cases for every day that has passed. But if I asked anyone to actually project this to the future, again, no one can really. Because at the end of the day, all projections, we undershot. Do remember, we undershot every single projection that was made, domestically as well as internationally, right? So therefore, you cannot get it perfectly. You do improve capacity, you ramp up capacity, and a lot of capacity has been ramped up. We started out with testing. I keep reminding people, we were doing 400 tests a day. 400 tests a day in 4 labs only. You know how many we're doing now? 30,000. And this is bound to go up. So you could not calculate these numbers. You couldn't identify these people. You couldn't provide care to them unless you had that. That's the first piece that needed to be put in place, alongside the entire visibility of this data. When you're doing tests in 100 different labs across 6 jurisdictions, across private sector, public sector, non-profit, and to connect them all into a single dashboard, this was what was being done as well. In addition, calculation of vents. So new ventilators, additional ventilators were plugged into the system. The COVID allocated ventilators at one point were approximately 1,300. There's been an increase of a few hundred into this. But mind you, ventilators were not the easiest thing to necessarily ramp up, because as you can imagine, and as you know, there was a global run on ventilators. We don't manufacture these ourselves. And when every country in the world is knocking the door of ventilator suppliers, it is not easy to find 10,000 ventilators all in one go, even if you had the money to buy them. And money really was not the issue. The issue was, the availability, quick availability of these orders to be filled. Likewise, the capability of the health system. So beds, oxygen capable beds, and ventilators were all increased and enhanced. But the problem generally is that health system capacity is not such a scalable item, and so quickly, that too in a country that has not had adequate investment into health infrastructure. The fact of the matter is that we're having to do this. Pakistan as a whole is having to do this in a hurry, in the midst of a pandemic, And all provinces, every single province, I can tell you, has put in their work to try to enhance this capability. Next step, manpower. We are the most nurse short country in the world. Critical care nursing on top of it is disastrous. There is just very few nurses. It takes, beyond medical school, it takes 6 to 7 years to create a critical care specialist, right? So you can't do the Hatheli mein sarson model, but again, that's been tried. A lot
Of
of people
course,
have been trained
fundamental
to.
healthcare reforms are necessary. But in the short run, what steps can we take? Because as you also stated, कि अभी शहरों में most healthcare systems overwhelm हो गए हैं. तो अब as of right now हम क्या steps कर सकते हैं? Government क्या steps कर रही है? एंड आपने थोड़ी प्रोजेक्शंस की भी बात की, उस पर भी लाइट शेयर कर सकते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट ने एंटिसिपेट किया था कि हेल्थ केयर सिस्टम ओवरवेलम होगा, और अगर होगा तो हम क्या करेंगे उस सिनेरियो में?
Right. So we had done some calculations or projections on to see okay, when and where the ventilator capacity will get fully tripped up. It really hasn't even been fully tripped up at this time. That does not mean that there isn't intense pressure, one, or that an individual patient or a number of patients on a given day have difficulty in finding. Of course, they do have difficulty in finding, simply because when you have a fill up of the system, let's say a city like Lahore, it will not get filled up evenly. One hospital may have a vent or two or three, one may have 10. You may not know where to go because you don't know. And so this visibility of the health system was crucial. Thus, this Pak Nigehban app and the dashboard for the resource management, just so that everybody could see the same thing. Again, ideally, it ought to have existed, but this was built in real time. This was built as we were running to make sure that this availability information was there. So that was the first important information. Look, it'll be terrible if you had capacity a mile away, and just because you were knocking the door of this hospital, they didn't have anything, and you thought there was nothing, and there was something available next door. So the unevenness of availability had to be sorted first by complete visibility of where the information was. The second thing, of course, was to build the actual numbers. So additional beds, additional oxygen beds, and additional ventilators were not only increased into the system, but will be continued to be increased. So up to 1,000 additional oxygen beds by the federal government. That this does not include all the additional efforts that the provinces have done, and another 1,000 or so, perhaps more, for July. But the real thing is that we need to also remember that no matter how much we build capacity, it is crucial to still blunt the spread of the disease. Because you can keep building capacity, but if you don't blunt this disease, it is going to overwhelm you. Thus, the smarter targeted lockdowns, and thus the crucial need to also respect some of these things. Look, as a population, we sometimes ask that governments do something. Of course, it is the job of the government to take many of the steps, but we need to also be partners in this. Every single individual has to take on the responsibility as well and say, look, I'm also going to be responsible. I will restrict my movements unnecessarily. I'm not going to go into crowded shops. I'm going to use a mask when I go into crowded places or tight spaces, and so on. So I think it's a partnership, and that is crucial.
बिल्कुल and I agree with that कि जो SOPs जो government ने lay out किए हैं in terms of wearing face masks, in terms of social distancing are very important. लेकिन उसके बारे में भी मैं आपसे एक सवाल पूछना चाहूँगा, and that's about the government's mixed messaging. Because on the one hand, definitely your protocols उन्होंने lay out किए हैं in terms of wearing face masks, in terms of social distancing, but on the other hand, ये until very recently और अभी भी आप देख रहे हैं कि politicians including from the government themselves वो face mask नहीं पहन रहे public में, वो meetings में वो social distancing follow नहीं कर रहे. Now face mask जो हैं वो the CDC in America for example, I know initially कहा था कि face mask नहीं पहने because of medical shortage, but as early as 8th April CDC ने कहा कि अभी public में आपने face mask पहनने हैं. इमरान खान उसके 2 महीने बाद भी गैदरिंग्स में आ रहे हैं और वो फेस मास्क नहीं पहन रहे, एंड उसके अलावा सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग अभी भी फुली ऑब्जर्व मीटिंग्स में नहीं हो रही. तो क्या आपको लगता है कि पीपल को जरूर फॉलो करना चाहिए, लेकिन अगर मैसेजिंग मिक्स्ड आ रही हो गवर्नमेंट से तो उससे भी कंफ्यूजन जरूर जनरेट होती है?
I agree completely. I think the messaging has to be consistent. and any breaches of that do lower the confidence in the recommendation. Isme koi shak nahi. This goes without saying, and I think one should call a spade a spade. I think there have been circumstances jahan one person or the other may have either not followed it or played it down. But also remember कि जहाँ तक masks का ताल्लुक है ना, it's been a little bit of a pendulum. At one point, the WHO and CDC were not on the same page. Then they sort of crisscrossed, and you've seen so many things have pendulum from one end to the other. You have the chloroquine story in front of you, and you have even the.
बिल्कुल ये सब real time में evolve हो रही है.
Yeah.
But I think it would be fair to say कि अभी face masks and social distancing guidelines follow करना बहुत जरूरी है, correct?
Oh, absolutely, it's crucial. It will blunt the disease.
And similarly, अगर हम ये spread of COVID के बारे में भी बात करें, तो I think it's very important to talk about healthcare professionals, especially हमारे doctors जो हैं, nurses जो हैं, other people working in hospitals. उसके लिए मैं specifically पूछना चाहूँगा, because एक specific stat एक reporter ने recent निकाला कि on April 12th, this is Benazir Shah from Geo, on April 12th, around 100 workers were infected with COVID-19, healthcare workers were infected with COVID-19. Now, in a little over 2 months, we have more than 4,000 doctors that are infected, healthcare workers that are infected with COVID. So what is the government doing? Is the government aware of these numbers? What steps is the government taking to ensure कि जो हमारे front lines पर जो doctors and other healthcare workers हैं, उन्हें adequate protections मिले? I know initially PPE shortages की भी बात हुई थी.
So yeah, the PPEs were short or were going to get short at one point, and that's another great success in this story in which Pakistan rose to the challenge, and today there is no PPE shortage. The next step, of course, is appropriate and adequate use. That requires training, reinforcement. But also remember that even with the best usage, people do turn positive. And also, whenever we look at statistics, we must always, in this frenzy and think, look a little bit beyond our walls and beyond the borders and see what's happening in the rest of the world. And globally, this kind of number of healthcare worker positivity is not unusual. Some of it happens in the healthcare setting, especially frontline staff who are doing it. Despite the best methodologies, sometimes there is a breach. But also remember, healthcare workers are also part of the larger population. And so we all get exposed in other areas as well. So the most important thing was provision of PPEs, clear guidelines for them, and training. And all of this has been done. But that does not make it perfect, unfortunately. I think more can be done.
आपने previously आप लोग ने internal projections के आपने mention किया, and I think this is a very important point because यहाँ भी थोड़ी सी confusion रही है because different utterances by different elected officials about when the peak will be and how many projected deaths and number of cases we face, उसके बारे में बहुत confusion and debate हुआ है. तो आपकी internal projections आप कुछ share कर सकते हैं हमारे साथ कि what trend is Pakistan's COVID curve looking like?
So, Asad, I'll end on this one, and I think I should, trademark this. I think projection peaks are only visible in rear view mirrors once you're past them. It's impossible to know beforehand. You can estimate, and at this time, the best estimates that we have been able to come up with that the peak is yet to come, perhaps in the next few weeks. That's the best I can tell you. As far as projections are concerned, देखिए projections हमेशा होती रही. They've always been done. The problem was they were based on a smaller data set. Therefore, they were less accurate. We did not know the dynamics of the disease in our situation. So that was another variable that was unknown. And lastly, they had been off, relative to what had actually happened as we went along time. So therefore, while we use them for our own planning and ramping up capacity and so forth, there was no point in sharing a projection which by definition is off. With time, we have greater confidence because we have greater data, larger data sets, and we have our own patterns to consider. So I think we're a little bit more confident. And the projection that was shared by Mr. Asad Umar the other day was the higher end of the projection for end July, just to also highlight that, look, there are almost two Pakistans. There's one set of people who are immensely worried, and rightly. And then there's the other set which seems to think that, it's a conspiracy or it's nothing real. So I think those had to be bridged, and one of the important messages to give out was that, look, if we don't take precautions, that is where we will reach. We do not want to be in the Italy or Spain situation.